Guess the player. I'm going to read another stats. Guess the player.
Okay, what do we got?
7.6 points a game. 31%. Or actually 26% on threes on 6 a game.
Come on, man. This is Klay Thompson.
Damn, you're hot.
Yeah, no.
He's cold and you're hot.
Brother. And he was sick in Washington one game after being scoreless in Memphis, which was his second game coming off the bench. And the decision to bring Klay off the bench has gotten buried by all the feces that's flying around the Mavericks right now. But, dude, it was like, I'm just telling you, man, that was a big, big thing. And, he said the right things afterwards. I wasn't at that game, but the Dallas Morning News talked to him. And, he said all the right things, but we all know, everybody who knows Klay knows how much pride he has. And, man, coming off the bench for Golden State, he was miserable. And he was pissed. Now, the Mavericks recruited him to Dallas, which, by the way, that contract, he's owed about $34 million this year, next year. It's looking rough. But they recruited him to Dallas. They couldn't offer him as much as the Lakers did, with the promise that he would be coming off the bench. And in his defense, one of the major reasons.
Promise he'd be starting, I think.
I'm sorry, right? My bad. Promise that he'd be starting. Promise that he would have a starting job. And he started the first 79 games he played for the Mavericks, 81 if you want to include the playing games. So it was like, I knew they were thinking about it, but this was a big decision for J. Kidd to make because, frankly, you risk just flat out losing Klay mentally. It's going to be a challenge for him to stay in it mentally, but he was so bad. They had to make this move. Now, D'Angelo Russell, Sirs, he was minus 18 in a win over the Washington Wizards. He's had one good shooting game for the Mavericks, but just to get a point guard on the floor to take that burden off of Cooper Flag.
After what I saw in that game against New Orleans, I kind of support it.
No, they had to take the burden off of Cooper Flag's shoulders in terms of being the primary facilitator. Klay, just the production was so bad. And honestly, his best game this season was his first game off the bench, but that was a big, big deal. But man, there's just dude, there's a whole lot of things that ain't good with the Mavericks. And hey, at this point, I believe it is a matter of when, not if, Nico Harrison will be fired. And there is a very, very strong likelihood that will be midseason. Maybe they can get things turned around. Maybe his seat can go from sizzling to, a more normal temperature. But, I always say, dude, every time I think that they've hit rock bottom, they find a way to drill deeper. And
they almost lost to Washington. They won.
That would have been drilling. That would have been drilling all the way down to Hades, and that's about how hot Nico's seat is right now, fellas.
Well, their two best players are out.
Okay. Breaking news: they knew Kyrie was going to miss the first half of the season or so, and your big move this summer was to go to get D'Angelo Russell to replace them on a temporary basis. Also, why do they have such a void for playmaking and offense creation on this roster? So, I mean, come on now. It's blown up in his face. It's blown up in Patrick Dumont's face. After that Luka trade, Patrick Dumont, one of his infamous quotes was, "In Nico, we trust." I'm just telling you, the trust is disintegrated at this point. Anthony Davis wanted to play Saturday in Washington. He'd been gearing up to that. Practice Thursday, doubtful, then sat Friday in Memphis, upgraded to questionable. That we all see that's the normal track to bringing a guy back from injury. There was internal disagreement about whether that was a good idea. And there was a lot of opinions voiced in that. Ultimately, they decided to hold him out in Washington. We'll see if he plays Monday against the Bucks. He's questionable again. One of the opinions that was, I don't know if it was a veto. I don't know how heavily this opinion weighed in, But one of the opinions that was involved here was Patrick Dumont's. Patrick Dumont went from blind faith in Nico to now weighing in on whether a star can come back from injury. That's a pretty significant.
Well, it's because last year he tried to play through the injury when he came back, when he played to play his first game, and it was borderline, and he made it worse. I mean, I'm not saying I don't know about the owner being involved. I'm just saying, like, I might ask some questions too.
Right. And so let me ask you this. Why do you think Anthony Davis rushed back last year to play in that home game with the Rockets? Okay. Why would he rush back right now?
Well,
pretty bad idea.
I see what you're doing.
Why would he do that?
So, especially we're talking about a calf strain. You don't.
Definitely not.
With those things. And my understanding is that there were people with the Mavericks medical staff that were saying, we cannot rush this guy back. That Dumont certainly agreed with that. And that ultimately, I was told by the end, everybody was on the same page. Okay. Ultimately, they decided to hold off at least another couple of days. But again, the fact that Patrick Dumont is involved in that sort of decision-making is a major, major development. Let me ask you this.
Asking a lot of questions.
No, I'm just asking. Since they went to the finals, which personnel moves that the Mavericks have made have worked?
God, what feels longer ago?
I'm asking.
The Mavs? No, hold on. I'm going to ask a question because you said that. What feels longer ago? The Mavs making the finals or the Pistons losing 29 in a row? I'm not sure which feels farther away right now.
Seriously. But we just mentioned
Cooper Flag with the number 1 pick. That was.
I would say the plan of getting Cooper Flag in the lottery worked out great. I would say that's good.
Favors the bold. You're starting to see.
I would say Brandon Williams, nice pickup.
Okay.
I would say. I'm trying to think of what are my other options since the finals.
Klay Thompson.
I don't like that.
The Luka trade.
Well, I mean, sure. The worst trade in history of the league. I don't like that.
Trading Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin.
I don't like that.
Who flunked the physical. You still went through the trade, and then you couldn't, as your team's falling apart, sign guys even to a 10-day because you got so bumped up to the apron.
I don't like that move.
I guess the Najee Marshall one's been okay. But
that's a good move. I like Najee Marshall. That's good.
My point is there's been some pretty epic disasters here. By the way, Caleb Martin's averaging
But they lost Derek Jones when they got Najee Marshall.
I liked that Najee Marshall deal. I thought that was okay. I think that's a good move. I'll give him that.
There's been some massive
Brandon Williams and Najee Marshall. Good. Luka Doncic, bad.
And some other ones, yes.
And some other ones.
Now, who's going to run the Mavericks trade deadline?
Well, listen, we got 3 months until the trade deadline. Let's not start doing that.
What is the Mavericks trade assets?
Here's one. Anthony Davis.
Yeah,
they should trade Anthony Davis tomorrow.
Well, and listen.
What are you shaking your head about? What are you shaking your head about? You're still going to argue this point now?
I've heard your rationale in the vacuum.
Hold on. Nico would never ever do that. But they are in year 2 of, in his own definition, a 3 to 4 year contending window.
God, that was one of the most that press conference. That press conference in Cleveland. That was one of the craziest things of all time.
This is year 2.
Yeah, we have a 3 to 4 year window.
So year 2, light this thing on fire, right? And bro, you lucked into getting Cooper Flag. At some point, I would say pronto, the focus of the franchise has got to be pivoting around Cooper Flag, because let me just remind you, in successfully building a finals team around 5-time first-team All-NBA before entering his prime face of the franchise, Luka Doncic, you gave up control of your first-round draft picks, 27, 28, 29, and 30. You've got this year's, and then you don't have your own again.
Well, first of all, they have this year, and I look forward to this year, the Mavericks getting AJ DeBanza, Cooper Flag, Cameron Boozer, somebody at the top of the draft, because that's going to happen, and the internet's going to break, and then it's going to be Cooper and another star.
I don't want to be a defense attorney here in this case. I just want to point out in fairness that when he did the press conference in Cleveland, he didn't know Kyrie was tearing his ACL within days.
It doesn't matter. You traded a guy, again, we don't need to relitigate the whole thing, but they traded a guy who's 25 and announced that they had a 3-year window. That's my point, as the rationale for the trade.
When you go on and tell us about that was a championship caliber team on the court for those 2 quarters.
No, I'm not going to do anything. I just need to point it out. I have another player.
It doesn't matter.
Okay,
it doesn't matter.
My point is this, though. Do you want a GM whose job security is very tenuous and because of that has a very short-term view, plus his window's 3 to 4 years? Do you want him making long-term decisions for a franchise that just has lucked into an 18-year-old potential superstar?
I think we know what the focus of the Mavericks franchise is right now. And it's on Cooper Flag. And I would be very surprised if this season trades are made that go against the timeline of Cooper Flag. That would be my guess.
They cannot be approved.
Well, I understand that. That's my point. I don't know who's going to run the team in terms of the trade room or who's going to be in charge or whatever. But I would bet, based off of the way things have gone over the past several months, that the Cooper Flag timeline is the one that Dallas will be looking at. And again, I look forward to the internet breaking next May when Dallas, after a very bad season, jumps up in the lottery and gets a guy to go with Cooper. And whoever's running the team can say it was also part of the plan, just like jumping up to get Cooper in the first place. All part of the plan.
Yes.
It's all part of the plan.